What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Time for another episode of the Ancestry Anthology. Today from Guns and Gears, the Automaton. If you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. For now, let's dive in. Okie doke. So on planet Earth, the tales of the construct who was once a human and had to convert over to a different body type for the sake of survival are, again, tropes as old as time. It's not much different than the poppet, which we talked about last week. Follow this card right up here if you don't know what the heck a poppet is. Everything from the myriad possessed suits of armor that you fight as goons in name that video game series here, up to Alphonse Elric and back again. As humans, we know our life on this earth is a relatively grand scheme of things short one, and part of that is because our flesh and blood bits are doomed to fail. And so if we can extend that by taking our consciousness and putting it into, say, a computer of some kind or an animated body, theoretically one could live much longer, if not forever. And of course, the automatons bear a very distinct resemblance to Dungeons & Dragons Warforged, originally printed in 3rd edition in the Eberron campaign setting, which then would go on to become a staple of that setting's games basically forever. In Pathfinder, our intelligent constructs, the Automaton, were the sort of last breath of a dying empire known as the Jiska Imperium. We're going to talk more about them later. It's a very big thing and a lot to process, which would take away from what we're doing here. The short version is towards the very end of that empire's existence. A sect of artificers formed the Artificer Conclave to try to stave off the empire's collapse, in so doing, transplanting the mind, life force, and soul of an individual into a construct, hoping to then help the empire live, at least in the sense that it would outlive its flesh and blood rivals. That, of course, was not the case. As empires are wont to do, the empire fell apart. The automatons were left to fend for themselves, and present day, that being a couple thousand and change years later, I'm not looking at a calendar at the moment, retain their memories, their sense of self, and their, lucidity. Several exist with shattered psyches, because their psyche has been on much longer than it was supposed to be. Those who've been able to hold on are as diverse as any other living creature on Galarian. Their own personality, shaped by whatever experiences that are pointed at them. Though in several cases, an automaton is literally an individual out of time, which has a myriad of reactions that one can get from folks when they realize just what walked into their village. Automaton design varies in shape. Most of them have a more or less humanoid appearance. Some have shapes that more closely resemble animals. The overwhelming majority have a single eye, which glows with this dim, magical light and contains a powerful artifact which houses the individual's soul and uses a combination of life energy and planar energy to power the thing. Automatons are, of course, powered by their automaton cores, which present day, nobody knows how to recreate, aka present day, it's your campaign's plot hook, haha. Since automatons are in fact constructs, they don't need to breathe, eat, or sleep, but their body does need to vent an imperceivable amount of magical exhaust at a pretty constant rate. The venting process requires breathable air to prevent a buildup of exhaust that can clog the automaton's systems. So in fact, your construct can technically suffocate. They don't sleep, but they do require a period of magical recalibration and restoration, which stabilizes their life energy. Without doing this, the automaton core is incapable of fully powering the automaton, and they get very inefficient, like Tommy without his caffeine. That makes a lot of sense, though. You're still a conscious humanoid. You gotta shut your brain off for a little while. Of course, automatons do not age. The design of their cores grants them essentially a permanent power source, their bodies today being as efficient as the day of their creation. And though an automaton is, like any other construct, indeed destroyable, their cores are very, very efficient, such that it's not unheard of to find a broken automaton whose soul is just trapped in the automaton core and never got the chance to move on. That is a very interesting concept for a unique undead. I will be brewing that later for sure anyway. Automatons come in with 8 HP. They are either medium or small creatures with a speed of 25 feet, ability boosts to strength with 1 freebie and no flaws. They begin play speaking Common, Utopian, the language of the inevitables, and additional languages for higher int, with the one add-on that common might be an extra language for you since you are literally the humanoid out of time. Your common was called Gistkin. They possess low light vision, and their automaton core allows them to be treated as a living creature. They can be affected by heals and harms, and they are not destroyed automatically when reduced to 0 hit points. Instead, like your flesh and blood friends, they are knocked out and begin dying. The automaton's body likewise is constructed, thus they do not need to eat or drink. Despite what the flavor text would have you believe, that standby state you need to get your daily rest in essentially means you do nothing except be aware of your surroundings and not take penalties for being unconscious for a 2-hour period. For our heritages, the hunter automaton has a body made to resemble like a large cat or wolf or other big predatory animal. Typically they move like quadrupeds, but they can still stand and fight like bipeds, allowing them to use all equipment normally, and if both your hands are free, your speed goes up to 30 feet as you run on all fours. Presumably, you would then just need an interact action to, when you stop moving, draw a weapon before you get down, unless you're playing like a monk or a spellcaster or something. No action required to shift your stance is really, really neat, and a very unique take on the construct that really only constructs could do. A mage automaton gains 1 cantrip from the arcane spell list, which can be cast as an arcane innate at will, because the chamber housing their core has things tapping into the rest of the body so they can tap into magic stuff. Sharpshooter automata gain the automaton aim action. For 1 action, you reduce the penalty for firing into your second range increment from -2 to 0 for the next ranged attack you make this turn. You can do this twice in the same turn to really cut down the penalty. In some campaigns, not very useful. Dungeon settings probably won't see a lot with this. But if something is flying overhead and will take a couple of rounds to reasonably get to you, this means you can put damage downrange before it does without having that huge penalty. I love sniper builds with gigantic aim. And the warrior automaton gets a d6 for its fist damage die instead of a d4. They're lethal, because, you know, your suit of armor was made for punching folks. For our Ancestry feats, Arcane Communication gives you touch telepathy, which allows you to communicate silently and mentally with any creature you're touching as long as you share a language. This has the Enhancement ability, which gives our telepathy a range of 10 feet. Talk more about that in a sec. Arcane Eye gives you dark vision and definitely doesn't sound like a different spell at all, like the enhancement version that would let you see invisible creatures in brief spurts, allowing you to cast See Invisibility. Automaton Lore gets you trained in Arcana and Crafting, as well as Automaton Lore indeed. Enhancing this increases your proficiency rank in either Arcana or Crafting, as well as Automaton Lore to Expert, or Master if you got there another way. Energy Beam, you knew you'd see it playing a construct, gives you an Energy Beam ranged unarmed attack that does 1d4 fire damage with a range increment of 20 feet. On a critical hit, the target takes persistent fire damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice. Your eye beam does not add crit specialization effects and goes to a d6 if enhanced. Unfortunate that that's not like 6 to 8, but I guess there are enough things that fire really hurts in 2nd edition that might be weird and unbalanced, but I just wish some of these strange natural attacks that people got in 2nd edition had slightly higher damage dice. Reinforced Chassis turns your body into medium armor in the plate armor group. That grants a +4 item bonus to AC, a dex cap of +1, a check of -2, speed of -5, and strength value of 16. Of course, if you're wearing this armor, you can't wear other armor or take your body off. You still don't become fatigued for sleeping in your technically armor, and you can etch onto yourself. Enhancing this gives you the chassis deflection reaction. If a critical hit would deal physical damage to you, make a DC 17 flat check. If you're successful, it becomes a normal hit. Things like this are really fun in games where like equipment will be few and far between. And if nothing else, it's super unflavored to be like, no, I'm literally just made of metal. You can't hurt me that way. ArcaneSafeguards gives you the resist magic reaction. When you attempt a saving throw against a harmful magical effect but have not rolled, get a +1 circumstance bonus to the triggering save. If the effect is arcane, you get 1 better degree of success. Enhancing this eventually gives you temp HP equal to the spell level when you fire off the reaction. Magical Resistance allows you to choose either cold, electricity, or sonic, and you gain resistance 5 to that damage type. Enhancing it lets you either get resistance 5 to the other 2 damage types as well, or your chosen resistance becomes 1 plus half your level. Really got to make sure all your circuits are protected against the blue dragons lightning-ing the robot, I suppose. Hunter automatons gain access at level 9 to Arcane Camouflage, which allows them to cast Blurred Invisibility once per day as 2nd level Arcane Innates. Enhancing this lets Blur last a whopping 10 minutes. That's huge. That's like 1E levels of cast time. You also could get a 4th level invisibility and get Blurred Invisibility each twice per day by enhancing this. This is really good for a lot of things. For 2 actions, Arcane Propulsion lets you fly for 5 minutes once per day by redirecting energy. I can't not picture Iron Man hands causing you to like float around real awkward and dangerously close to pitching over like. You gain a fly speed equal to your speed while doing this. Enhancing this one lets you redirect your energy at all times, allowing you to just fly whenever you want. Arcane Slam for our warriors. If you have a creature grabbed or restrained, you channel magical power from your core into your arm. Attempt an athletics check against the bad guy's fort DC. You take a -2 to your check if the target is bigger than you, increasing by -2 more for every size category difference. If they're smaller, you get a bonus though. On a critical success, you slam the foe down. Magical energy overwhelms it. They are knocked prone and dazzled 1, and they take 2d6 plus your strength mod in damage, but you're no longer grabbing them. Success, they are prone and take damage equal to your strength mod. Failure, nothing happens, but you don't lose the creature. Crit failure, nothing happens, and you lose grasp on the creature. Enhancing this, you no longer take penalties for slamming the big ones, and ticks our damage up to the critical success on a success, or double damage on a critical success. Core Attunement for the mage automatons lets you select 1 first level arcane spell and 1 second level or lower arcane spell to which you have access, which allows you to cast them as Arcane Innates as well, each once per day. Enhancing this lets you get a 5th level or lower arcane spell and a 6th level or lower arcane spell for the same thing. Really good for automaton wizards who just need extra spell slots. This is really good for like automaton wizards who want to free archetype into something that isn't spellcastery but also want more spellcastery things. The rich get richer. That you probably deserve that after 2,000 years being alone in a box or wherever you were, doing you. Lesser Augmentation. Finally, we've landed on that thing that now I can explain what these things mean. By choosing this Ancestry feat at level 9, you gain the enhancement benefits of 1 of your 1st or 5th level Automaton Ancestry feats. You can spend 1 week of downtime to change that enhancement, and by eventually enhancing this, you can enhance 2 1st or 5ths for the price of 1, and you only need to spend a day of downtime to change the way your things work. Rain of Bolts for 2 actions in the Sharpshooters lets you fire powerful projectiles from within your chassis in either a 30-foot cone or 10-foot emanation, dealing 66 piercing damage, which goes up to 7 at 12, 8 at 15, and 9 at 18. Enhancing this lets you regenerate them much faster than once per day. Instead, once per hour, the damage goes up to 12d6, and you can fire either adamantine, cold iron, or silver bolts. At 20, you go to 13d6. Because why not? At the end of the game, who doesn't want to just turn into a weird Skyrim bolt trap and just shoot everybody? Arcane Locomotion gives you either a climb speed of 20 feet or a swim speed of 20 feet, your call. Enhancing this lets you either enhance your land speed by 5 feet and increase the speed you chose from this feat to be equal to your new land speed, or gives you the other speed if you really just need to swim across the channel, climb a cliff on the other side, and didn't want to use your fly speed to do so, I suppose. Astral Blink lets you cast Dim Door once per hour as a 4th level Arcane Innate, since you've attuned your literal soul to the astral plane. That's dope. Enhancing this allows you to expend your hourly use of Dim Door as a free action when you begin your turn. If you do, your strides are until the end of your turn augmented, allowing you to instantly teleport to any point you could reach with your speed instead of traversing there normally. Your strides gain the conjuration and teleportation traits while this is happening. They don't trigger reactions that can be triggered by move actions upon leaving or entering a square, unless they would also trigger on teleportation. Because who doesn't want to just for 1 action hop somewhere, admittedly on a flat surface, since you must use your speed. Nevertheless, this is really good. Core Rejuvenation once per day if you have the dying condition and you are about to roll your recovery check. You go to 1 hit point, you lose the dying and unconscious conditions, you can act normally on this turn, you gain or increase the wounded condition as normal. Enhancing this gives you temp HP equal to 3 times your level for a minute when you do this. You see this on a lot of things late game. Did you go down? No, you didn't. Enlarged Chassis gives you a permanent enlarge spell So your small automata become medium, your mediums become large. Really good if you're trying to Arcane Slam things. And then enhancing this lets you literally lose the clumsy condition, trading out the drawback of being enlarged. This is dope. Every giant instinct barbarian's dream. And the automaton is weirdly positioned to be a good barbarian. Axial Recall lets you cast Plane Shift twice per week as Arcane Innate spells, which can only target yourself, and you can only go to Axis or the material plane about it. Core Cannon for 2 actions once per day. You turn yourself into a magical cannon. Why the hell not? While immobile as a cannon, you can fire blasts of energy from your core. You become immobilized until you use an interact action to go back to people form. While in cannon form, the only actions you can use are to strike with an energy blast or to interact to revert back to your standard form. You can remain in this form for a minute. Energy blasts do 3d8 fire damage and 3d6 force damage, increasing to 48 fire damage at 20th. You get item bonuses to attack rolls for the highest potency rune on any hand wraps and mighty blows you're wearing, or any magical great sword that became part of the cannon. Wild. Energy blasts have a range increment of 120 feet. It's 10 persistent fire damage on a crit. Energy blasts don't add critical specialization effects, and your damage dice are 3 or 4 for the purpose of weird effects. But yeah, why not? I heard you needed a new ranged attack. There it is. Greater Augmentation lets you gain the enhancement benefits of 1 1st, 5th, 9th, or 13th level Automaton Ancestry feat, with, again, making the reconfigure downtime that much faster. Now, I think the thing I like the most about the automatons is that this is a race that is straight up just out of Golarian's lore. It's not, here's something from mythology or urban legend or something like that, and we'll roll it up to make it a playable option in our kitchen trope sink. Go. Has that stuff been fun? Yeah, sure. I love Pathfinder for it. But this is literally right out of the lore of the game. And so it feels much more unique. You get to tell a lot of very different stories with it, assuming you're playing on Golarion. Again, like I've said for a lot of recent Ancestry, so damn versatile. I'm literally GMing for an Automaton Bard right now. It's a homebrew campaign that takes place in ancient Osirion during the rule of the 4 Pharaohs of Ascension. That's a whole other lore video in and of itself. The short answer is that the Jiska Imperium fell about 700 years ago. So there are definitely folk that recognize said automaton for what they are, and it's a very different, very unique person out of time, living in a world conquered by the people that ran over their people. I also really like that the automatons seem to have the ability to be balanced and fair, but aren't as overpowering as, well, I'm gonna play a construct. I have a bunch of immunities, haha. As a living creature, you can still be hit by harm spells. You still have to breathe. You can't just drop to the bottom of the sea to go exploring by walking on the floor like other creatures might. Presumably, an automaton can also be poisoned, can also suffer from all the other debilitating bad things that, humans can, but you only have to rest for 2 hours and you don't have to worry about tracking food and stuff, kind of like Leshies or Kenrasu, which is something one can build around in and of itself, and indeed is still really powerful, but not necessarily game-breaking. I really like their Ancestry feats as well. The ability to, here's a thing, it's pretty cool, later on, I'll take this to make it better, has that, improved and greater first edition Pathfinder feat vibes, but in a way that's, really powerful, and doesn't cost you anything from your class strictly, which means these feel considerably less bad, and being enlarged forever without the clumsy penalty. Again, super good. Anyway, that's all the time I have for this one. What do y'all think? Have we rolled up automatons? How do they fit in your world if you're not GMing on Golarion? Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.